Hello and welcome. My name is Lesley Friedland, and I am the Executive Director of FamilyKind. FamilyKind is a non-for-profit organization that empowers children, parents, and couples before, during, and after divorce or separation. In response to how our world has changed because of the coronavirus outbreak, we wanted to offer co-parents who might be struggling some helpful strategies and skills to help them better cope with these very uncertain times, help them cope with their children, and help them cope with one another. I am proud to be joined by Ellen Tanner, parent education trainer and director of program development for FamilyKind, and Nancy Nybergh, parent educator and member of FamilyKind's advisory council. I also want to take a moment to thank our Family Wizard, our sponsor, for helping us to get this program out to you. Our Family Wizard is an app that facilitates co-parenting. Today, more than ever, this is excellent for co-parents. Our goal in this webinar is to support parents who are divorced, separated, or co-parenting with someone, but not living together. Co-parenting is not easy in the best of circumstances. Today, it may even be more challenging in that we're all in uncharted territory. However, there is one constant. Parents want to do what is in their children's best interest. Ellen and Nancy, would you please expand on this concept?
Well, our hope during this webinar is that the practical skills that have been proven to help families function optimally are going to be presented in a way that will enable you and your co-parent to be more effective in doing what's in the best interest of your child or children, and also skills that you can use to improve your own self-care so that you can be the best version of yourself as a parent.
Yeah, and in addition to the skills that we'll be presenting, we will also be highlighting some resources that we think will be not only valuable to you, but give you some more detailed information. As Lesley was saying in the beginning, we're doing this to give you some general education, some helpful references, but we want to remind you that if you have some very specific situations in your particular family that you seek professionals such as a lawyer or a financial or even a mental health professional. So let's get started, and we're going to do this by looking at some questions or some scenarios that you might be facing. So the first one might be, my co-parent is supposed to have parenting time, but I don't think it's safe for any of them to travel. What can I do? So the first thing is to try to remain calm. Now, that may be very challenging to do under normal circumstances, but given what's going on and the fact that many people are not feeling very safe, can make it very difficult. And when we don't feel safe, because there's a lot of uncertainty out there, what happens is our brain is in charge of trying to make us feel safe. So it goes into this fight or flight mode. You may have heard of that, going into fight or flight. And so that what happens is that it puts all of our energy into being able to do that and takes the thinking portion of our brain offline. And this is a part of our brain called the amygdala. So you may have even heard of what's called an amygdala hijack. And so when that happens, it's very difficult to try to problem solve and think. So it's important to take a step back, pause, breathe, and remember that you're having a normal reaction to a very abnormal circumstance. But if you're communicating with your co-parent right now, and you're probably doing that through phone or email, or maybe you are seeing them in person, that you want to first really take a pause before you start having a conversation with them, because you want to make sure that you're able to communicate in a way so that you can have an effective communication with them to be able to problem solve and move forward in what's the best interest for your family.
You know, Nancy, those are really good points. You know, talking about the brain science, you know, what's physically happening when we're being confronted with these challenging situations, and to be able to be aware of it and then to take a breath and be calm before you react. I think that's a really important beginning point. I would also say that because anxiety is high and the circumstances right now are rapidly changing, it's important to be flexible as well. When referring to your parenting time agreement that you may have in place, see if there can be some flexibility given the current situation, either by discussing this with your co-parent if it's safe and feasible, or you can do it through legal means. What is really important is not to use this crisis as an excuse to punish your co-parent or children. If you feel it is important to adjust the parenting time schedule, it really needs to come from a realistic concern for the health and safety of everyone involved. In a recent article in Psychology Today, Dr. Elizabeth Cohen offered 10 excellent tips on how to co-parent in these challenging times. These tips not only help you, but you might want to share this article with your co-parent. Consistency is great for children in general, and especially during chaotic times. However, always remember your safety and the safety of your children come first. So it is important to only interact directly with your co-parent if it is safe for you. Now, if you have this article and you can review these tips and your co-parent reviews them, this might be a great way for you to discuss how to best sort of present a consistent and safe scenario to your kids.
I couldn't agree with you both more. The ability to communicate is critical, particularly at this time. When you are going to reach out to your co-parent, whether it is in person or on the phone or text messages or emails, create a simple agenda. Keep it down to 1 or 2 issues. Those might be a request for parenting time alternatives. And it might also be, how can you each help the child adjust to the new schoolwork that's being done remotely? So keep it simple. Don't get into you always and you never. You want to stay on topic. And we're going to talk a little bit more about, once you have your agenda, how do you communicate that agenda?
Right, and that's exactly it. So once you know what you want to talk about, how do you deliver that message to the other parent? And so what can be very helpful is using something called iMessage. And iMessages have a certain format, and I want to go through that with you by using an example. So say you are concerned about the other co-parent picking up your children because they are still going out into the world and working and coming into contact with other people. So perhaps you have some concern about them contracting the virus and then passing it on to your children. So you could express your concern through this format that you see on the screen. And it starts with, I feel. So think about how you feel. So it might be that you feel concerned. So you would start with, I feel concerned. And then the second part of this is when, and what the when has to do with what is it that the parent is doing or their behavior. So when you come to pick up the children. And then the next is because. So what would that mean? What would be the impact? And if you can certainly focus it on how it might impact your children, that might have a little bit more power. So in this case, it might be because I'm concerned that the children might contract the virus. And then the last piece is to talk about how you may want to problem solve this together. So you could say, can we agree to maybe schedule more video time or phone time to be able to communicate with the children? So altogether, this communication might sound like this. I feel concerned when you come to pick up the children because I'm afraid that they will get the virus because you're still working out in the world. So could we agree to maybe do more video chat time? So that would be a way of communicating that message as opposed to saying you can't see the children anymore. This will allow for more discussion to happen. So that's one piece of how you might want to have a discussion about problem solving, a concern around that.
Nancy, I just want to add, I think that's such a great message to give to people. And something specifically that I love about this is, it's right, it's not accusatory, you know, telling people, but it's ending with how can we work together, basically, because you're inviting the co-parent to problem solve with you about the most important thing in both of your worlds, your children. So.
Right, you're absolutely right. And that's why we talk about co-parenting, because it's about the both of you working together in the best interest of your child. So absolutely great point, Lesley.
And when we use an iMessage with our co-parent, they're going to have a response. They may agree with us and say, yeah, I agree, or they may say, oh, no. But whatever they're going to say, we want to keep an open mind to hear what they have to say. And then we want to actively listen, which means that we're listening not just to the content, which is the fact, but also how are they feeling about that. They may feel very strongly about what they're saying, which may be overwhelming for you. So you want to make sure that you got the fact and the feeling accurate. So for example, you know, in response to the concern about not being able to see their child, your active listening response could be, you feel worried that if you don't see our children, this will be very disappointing for them to handle on top of everything else that they're disappointed about in school, sports, celebrations, they've all been canceled. Our coaching about this active listening tool is you want to reflect what you heard the person say. They may go on and on and on, and you want to bottom line it. What's the main feeling and what's the fact? And in this situation, they were worried, and they were worried that this was going to be another disappointment for the children. You know what? You may not be accurate. They may have a different point of view, but at least they know that you're listening for understanding. And that's what active listening does. It creates shared understanding. And try it again if you didn't get it right the first time. There's no right or wrong here. Its focus is all on what's best for the children.
And I also love that skill. That's one of my favorites because I find it very hard. We think we listen, but with this active listening, you can't be thinking, how am I going to respond? Oh yeah, that happened to me. What am I going to cook for dinner? It takes a lot of concentration to be able to, what you say, bottom line it. And then you're right. If you don't get it right, the other person, your co-parent, will correct you. But I think we'll feel so valued that you're trying to understand what they're communicating.
And once you have come upon the shared understanding of what each of you are feeling or thinking, you know, you've given your iMessage, I feel worried, you've actively listened what you heard the other person say. Now it's time to problem solve. And there's a technique that helps with problem solving. that is very effective, which is, well, let's brainstorm, let's hear some ideas. And that's best and most effective when no ideas are off the table. Whatever you say, nothing is ridiculed, because sometimes from the from the ridiculous comes the sublime. I know children have used this tool with their parents when they want to convince their parents of a solution that they have. And so why not have us try it with each other as well? Let's practice brainstorming some ideas. And some of the things might be, for example, if there's a parent who has to fly to come in and visit their child, maybe the parent would say, I'll fly in a few days ahead of time and quarantine myself to make sure that I don't have any symptoms or develop any concerns. That's one idea. Another idea might, how about you drive halfway and I drive halfway, and I take the child for a little while you go visit a friend in the area. Maybe we're going to go to a park. Or another solution might be, how about if we let the kids have a much later bedtime so they can talk to you in the evening when you'll all read a bedtime book together. So there's lots of options. And once we think of one option, we can think of others. Depending on our situation, let's just brainstorm and think of some of those solutions to the problem that we've identified.
Right. And so once you have these solutions that you think may work, you want to look at each of them to see what's going to work for everyone, and then choose one of those solutions. Now, once you choose them, one of the things you can consider doing is maybe sleeping on it for the night. This will give you some time to kind of sit with it and see if anything else occurs to you. You don't necessarily have to do that. If you see the solution and think, oh yeah, this is what's going to work for us right now, go ahead and implement that. But let me just say to you that when you do implement it, do it with the agreement that if it doesn't work for one or both of the parents or the family, that you'll be willing to revisit to adjust that solution. Or even if it does seem to be working, but then things change, which things seem to be doing right now, there's a lot of uncertainty, that you'd be more than willing to come back to the table to revisit again to see how you might be able to tweak it or change it so that it can work for the family. So that's one thing that you can do in terms of choosing the solution. And then once you have that solution and you're going to move forward with it, make sure that you talk to your children about what you're going to do so that they are also included in all of this. And you're starting to remove any uncertainty that they may have about how am I going to see my other parent and so forth. And this way that they're all on board and on the same page.
And I think, Nancy, what you just said is so important for the children to see that the two parents are working together.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's really important. So another way that sometimes parents have to work together is that we're hearing from parents, a big complaint that we've been hearing is, since I'm home with the children more that the schools and other activities are closed or canceled, I'm feeling overwhelmed and I need my co-parent to step up and do more with the children. But their work isn't as flexible as mine. What should I do? And I think that's really important for, that's the opposite side of, the parent who's concerned about their co-parent having access to the child or children. Now it's the opposite. I need more access to my children by my co-parent. So we need to address that.
It's so true. I mean, these are issues that are really coming up right now. So sort of in response to the last issue you brought up, Ellen, while so much is in flux right now at our jobs and with school closings, our home life definitely has been put into a tailspin, no doubt about it. And it's very important to try to look at the current situation to see if adjustments can be made to benefit the child's new schedule. So refer to your parenting time agreement and see if flexibility is an option. Now might be a good time to work together with your co-parent in a way that is safe for you and in the best interest of the children. Because if we can all try to be flexible and the best versions of ourselves so that we can adjust to this rapidly changing situation to support our children. Nancy, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, certainly, if people can be flexible, that can be really helpful. But sometimes, given this that first responders are being asked to show up, and so they may not have that kind of flexibility. There may be other reasons in the family that is not going to be possible. So certainly, what we want to suggest to those parents is to engage in self-care, what we're calling self-talk. And that's about affirming all of those things that you are doing right and taking stock in what you have accomplished. Because in doing that, that's going to help you maybe identify more of what you need so that you don't become worn out or worse, sick, to be able to to look into other resources that might be able to help you. I'm not sure what that might mean to you. Maybe it's the family, or maybe it's a friend, just to even get on the phone, have a cup of tea with on the phone, because I know that this can be, really difficult given the circumstances. And I don't know, your family or extended family situation, but certainly to be able to remind yourself of all the things that you are doing well can be really very helpful.
Yeah, I always think too, what I've been thinking lately, give advice to yourself that you would give to your best friend.
There you go.
And help them to take care of yourself the way you would to someone very close to you.
This is true. And in addition to your own self-care and self-talk, now when you feel better, as using your manners to the best of your ability, make a request of your co-parent if you're feeling overwhelmed with your children. There's nothing wrong with that. We're used to our children having a schedule, and now all of a sudden we're the schedule. So you want to ask your co-parent if it's possible for them to rearrange work obligations at this time. And that may require some monetary abilities, that have to be adjusted because maybe they're going to cut back on some of their time or change their hours. So you have to give that a lot of thought and conversation using those same skills that we just covered before about active listening and iMessages. One of the things that we would want to add, if you identify that your request is that your parent spend more time with the children, either in person or help doing homework online, however you're going to make that request, maybe you want to write that down as your agenda item and write down what your iMessage is, and then remind yourself to actively listen. Using manners when you're stressed will calm everybody down. Another thing is to use online resources. And on the end of this webinar, we're going to show you a slide that lists a lot of resources, things like brains.org. And there will be a few other items on the resources page for you. Scholastic has some great resources that are of interest. So there's a lot for us to think about as we are going to be trying some new approaches with our co-parent, with our children, with the way schoolwork is handled. Another thing that people might want to do is to conduct a family meeting. And the co-parent who's not present might phone in to talk about that. We're going to come back and talk a little bit more about conducting family meetings and trying new approaches in just a little bit. Nancy, I think you had some ideas about some new approaches as well.
Yeah, I did, but I wanted to just kind of wrap it around another scenario that people may be coming up against, given that schools are closed here in New York City. So one of them could be that my children are fighting all the time. My co-parent seems to think that this is normal, but it's just too much. What can I do? So yeah, I can appreciate that. So again, trying a new approach, trying something different. I think that this can be also looked at, that this could be a teachable moment for your kids. And to remember that, you know, all parents have not only their own relationship with their children, but they may have a different kind of parenting style as well. So one of the things that you can consider doing is helping your children learn how to better get along. And you can do that maybe by involving them in working together on a project or two. So some ideas about that could be to maybe do a puppet show, or maybe writing and performing a song, or involve them in mealtime, and that you can all cook together. You can also create art and then have an art show, and you can be involved in that. I know when my children were younger, I used to frame and hang their art on the wall, and you can do the same for them as well. And then you can even involve the co-parent at a later time by either filming or even having your children, depending upon their age, give a virtual tour of their art show or perform that song or play that they did. So that is one way to help children maybe get along. There is also a really good resource in a book by Adele Faber and Elaine Maslish called Siblings Without Rivalry. These two authors wrote another wonderful book called How to Get Kids to, how did that book go? Does anybody remember how to
talk so your children will listen and listen so your children will talk.
Thank you. I
Great
blanked
book.
on that. Yeah, and but they wrote another book called Siblings Without Rivalry, which can be very helpful. And you'll see that resource in a minute as well. So try a new approach, try something different.
And I can't underscore how wonderful those two authors are to get some other ideas of some new approaches that you can use in helping our children learn how to be friendly towards one another. Again, using manners towards one another, working together on a project, having goals together. But how do you decide what to do? Well, one way to do it is conduct a family meeting. And family meetings are supposed to be fun. They're not always. I understand that. But if we keep the agenda, again, going back to the idea of having agendas, 1 or 2 items, like what can we do that would be fun? What are our meals that we want to make this week? And who wants to help make them? And it's a slowing down. You know, a lot of families today don't take a lot of time to prepare meals. Now we have some time, we might be able to do that and incorporate some things that we're learning or teaching our children, such as measuring or taking turns. I had a call the other day with somebody who said that she's now letting her 4-year-old cut with a knife, and she never thought she would do that, but now she has the time and the concentration, and the child's really doing far better than she thought. And they decided about their meals at a family meeting. So you start with an agenda, and everybody takes turns. One person speaks at a time. You might even have a child who is old enough to take minutes or write down what the decisions are that the family has made. And you can, if you have a family meeting once a day or once a week, keep those records because it's something that you will look back on after this time has gone on and run its course. It'll be fun to look back and see what you did. You might want to take photos of your family meetings, and maybe one child is in charge of the photos. Another child might be too young to sit there, and maybe it's okay if they have crayons and paper and they draw a picture while things are going on. Even infants can join in the family meeting. They may not say anything, but they'll feel included when they see everybody working together. After your family, I just wanted to add one more quick thing. When you're done with your family meeting, make sure that you do something that's fun. Make popcorn together, watch a movie, play a game, play card games. Even if you don't want to play a game that's competitive, how high can you build your card stack? You know, when they all stand on top of each other, doing something that's fun after a family meeting.
I was going to add, Ellen, I think that's wonderful. As you were talking, I was thinking about how this could build, leadership skills in children, to be able to, be a part of taking charge and feel that they have a voice. And then that also sparked in me about when we're saying trying something different in terms of sibling rivalry, skills that we're suggesting you use are the same skills that your kids can learn. How do they actively listen to their sibling? So you can be a wonderful model for that as well. So there's a lot of opportunity here to find a new way, for sure. I interrupted you.
And I also, just to build on what you're both saying, I think that family meeting concept is great in so many ways, and especially important now because I think children and adults were craving structure right now. That is something, everything has sort of blown up in our daily lives. So by having that meeting, coming together, talking about what kinds of things do we want to do, having the input, and then implementing them, I think can really bring some structure and some calm. And I also think that some of these great things we're talking about now, hopefully will continue once life has settled back down, once things have gotten back to a normal routine, and people can see maybe some of the benefits of the things that they did in this challenging time. So let's see, here are some additional resources. Ellen had talked about some of them, Nancy had. They're excellent. You are probably being inundated with different things right now about helpful tips, how to keep yourself healthy, how to keep your children healthy. What we try to do is bring some resources together about parenting and co-parenting. Things that you can look at your leisure. There's a sibling book and the Scholastic, which has to do with at-home learning, all different things that you can do to help support your children. And if you share these resources with your co-parent, it might really be a great way to stir great conversation, the brainstorming that Ellen talked about. How are we going to do this in a way that's best for our kids? We can do this. We can come together on this issue, and we can approach it in a way that's healthy. So before we sort of wrap up this webinar, I want to look to you, Nancy, and to you, Ellen, for some closing comments, some takeaways, some parting words.
I guess, what I want to say is we've been focused a lot on, the co-parents and working towards the best interests, of their children during these uncertain times. And the fact that can add a lot of stress, the uncertainty can be really difficult to manage. But your children are also feeling that too. And to remember that, and that's why I think that it's very important to try to take a breath and take a pause before you have what you might think is a difficult conversation, because this is stressful enough and you don't want to add any more stress into your children's lives. And so I wish everybody well.
And I think that there's a mastery to coping and to dealing with the challenges that we face in every life. And I think we have a lot of strength. I encourage you to go back to that self-talk. What are you doing well? What are your strengths? And build upon them, because we do know a lot, and we all love our children, and we may not love everything that they do, but if we come together with our co-parent in a way that is reinforcing to our children that they are loved, that we have faith in them, that we're here for them, and that we want to help them achieve their goals, then we can all come through this on the other side better than we imagine. So thank you, and I too wish you all well.
Mm-hmm. I think those are great points, because what children need most is to know that they are loved and feel supported. And, you know, these are great ways to sort of communicate that to them. We hope that this information has been helpful to all of you. It has been an honor sharing this information with you, with my colleagues, Ellen and Nancy, because we really believe deeply in you as parents and as co-parents, and we know it's really, really hard, but we want to be able to help you through the challenges, through the good times. So if you need further assistance, you know, please reach out. We have a variety of live and online services that support you and your co-parent, parenting education, coaching, mediation, parenting coordination, all different things. And we are launching a webinar series because we feel this is a great way to communicate with you and to build on skills that you might not know, introduce maybe new skills, because we're all in this together into parenting and raising healthy children and healthy, productive citizens in our communities. We all want what's best for our children, and during these challenging times, we need to be creative, open-minded, and flexible as parents and co-parents. On behalf of all of us at FamilyKind, as well as our sponsor, our Family Wizard, we wish your family good luck and good health, and warm wishes to all of you.